0.5% involved 3 victims, 0.2% involved 4 victims, and 0.1% involved 5 or more victims. So obviously, mass murders are rarely happening, yet they continue to want to gun grab the government. Moreover, the homicide rate in the United States has declined sharply in recent years from 9.3 homicides per 100,000 in 1992 to 4.8 homicides per 100,000 in 2010. So this is obviously far from an epidemic, yet the government wants control of your guns. And here's one of the reasons why. I'm going to give you some quick stories. A 71-year-old recently was at a gaming cafe in Florida. 2 intruders came in, one with a bat, one with a gun. They wanted to rob the place. He shot a gun, and the perpetrators ran away. And as a result, one bystander says, "I think he is wonderful for doing what he did, for protecting us." And that could actually be seen on YouTube, from what I'm told. Another example of law-abiding citizens protecting themselves with a gun. In Phoenix recently, a 14-year-old boy protected his 3 younger brothers from an intruder who broke into their home with a gun. He shot at the intruder with his father's gun, and he struck the intruder, and the intruder ran away. That recently happened in Phoenix. And just another story that recently happened in Oklahoma City. A woman was able to protect both herself and her child. An intruder came in, tried to kick in her door. He came at her with a knife, and her name, Mrs. McKinley. She took out her 12 gauge, and she shot the perpetrator and was able to save the life of both her child and herself. But the government would say that's evil. It's, you know, she was wrong, obviously. So those are just some great examples, and you don't see that in the media. Examples of people protecting their loved ones because they used a firearm. Let me end with this. It's a quote from Ben Franklin, and it said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." And later on in the show, Rob is going to interview a woman who exercised her Second Amendment rights. That's going to be a great piece. So back to you, Darren.
Thank you, Dave, for that report. And what an amazing coincidence that this Dark Night massacre just happens to occur within weeks away from, and only a few more votes needed in the Senate to pass the UN Small Arms Treaty. After all, our government is filled with lawmakers who endorse a one-world government, with the UN as the single governing agency for the globe. So when this treaty comes before the U.S. Senate, you know, they're most likely going to support it, especially now following the shooting in Colorado. And the UN has been planning this for a very long time. I mean, just look at the statue that's in front of the UN building in New York. That's a .357 revolver right there. There you go. That's a .357 revolver with the barrel tied in a knot. It's not a broken missile. It's not a broken bomb. That is blatant, in-your-face, small arms control. And speaking of a one-world government, the United States government has a shadow government that spies on the American people. It launches false flag terror attacks against its own citizens. It starts illegal and unjust wars for resources and imperial control, and they're hell-bent on destroying what's left of our constitutional republic in order to establish a one-world government in its ruins. Those of you watching the show for the first time, you've probably figured out by now that you're not watching the mainstream news media, because the truth will not be televised, at least not by any of the major television networks who are owned and controlled by the megacorporations and the military-industrial complex. You will, however, routinely get a steady dose of the truth right here on the INFOWARS Nightly News. And, well, that, my friends, makes us dangerous in the eyes of the establishment media. Recently, the Soros-funded Obama front group, Think Progress, wrote a hit piece about Matt Drudge's popular website, The Drudge Report. drudgereport.com, saying it was responsible for causing an overload of conspiracy theories by routinely linking to yours truly, INFOWARS.com. A Think Progress study of the Drudge Report reveals the popular website is responsible for causing an overload of conspiracy theories by linking to INFOWARS.com, which, by the way, our website dwarfs thinkprogress.org in terms of traffic and readership. In fact, American confidence in the dinosaur media has dropped to an all-time low. Meanwhile, independent media is surging. And here's John Bound with statistics to back that up.
The Independent is reporting that CNN lost 50% of its audience over the last 12 months. Fox News and MSNBC now overwhelm CNN in almost every time slot. Fox News is losing 10% annually, and MSNBC is nosediving by 20%. In the incredibly important 25 to 54-year-old demographic, CNN's Piers Morgan averages 39,000 viewers, while Aaron Burnett brings in just 46,000 viewers. Anderson Cooper lost a quarter of his viewers, as half of Wolf Blitzer's viewers have looked elsewhere. Isn't it interesting that an alternative media source like INFOWARS.com, by simply offering the truth, has 4 times the presence than a failing corporate lie factory such as MSNBC.com, according to Alexa.com. In the words of Frederick Douglass, at a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. John Bound, INFOWARS Nightly News.
Now, earlier this month, acting ATF Director Todd Jones, he sent a memo to ATF employees warning potential whistleblowers that they will face consequences if they don't respect the chain of command and ask permission to release information damaging to the agency. If you don't find the way to raise your concerns to your leadership, there will be consequences, Todd Jones says in the video, because we cannot tolerate an undisciplined organization. One of the undisciplined ATF employees managed to make a copy of the video. It's now being circulated, thankfully, on the internet. And, I thought it looked like something straight out of 1984. Todd Jones looking very Big Brother-like in this clip. And, especially when you present it like this.
Choices and consequences. And when I'm talking about choices and consequences, I'm talking about the disciplinary process. What my expectation is, as the acting director, when it comes to the disciplinary process, choices and consequences simply means that as an employee of ATF, should you decide not to abide by the standards of conduct or the rules of the road, should you decide that you're not going to play by the rules, there will be consequences. Choices and consequences mean simply that if you make poor choices, that if you don't abide by the rules, that if you don't respect the chain of command, if you don't find the appropriate way to raise your concerns to your leadership, there will be consequences, because we cannot tolerate an undisciplined organization. And the next time that we talk, we'll start to grind down on some of the specifics about how we're going to actually follow through on this accelerated change that we've been implementing here at ATF over the last 9 months. Thank you for your attention. Keep your comments coming in, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
So there you have it. Whistleblowers will face consequences. And Senator Charles Grassley from Iowa and Representative Darrell Issa from California, they actually sent a letter this week to Todd Jones declaring the message, and I'm going to quote here, "It could be interpreted as a threat." Yeah, you think? ATF spokeswoman Ginger Colburn said the video was directed at employees who violate the rules, and it was not directed at those with protected disclosure. Yeah. Hey, do me a favor, play the video again, this time without sound. I'm going to try to translate what I think Todd Jones is really trying to say here. Hello. We will not tolerate anyone telling the truth to the public. Truth tellers will not be tolerated. If you disclose our illegal activities, we are going to F you up. You and your family will suffer. Now go back to sleep. Everything is fine. Big brother loves you. And by the way, I'm naked from the waist down. Oh, okay, you can stop there. All right, stop. You know, it's no secret that ATF whistleblowers were instrumental in exposing the illegal Operation Fast and Furious. So I think Todd Jones is really saying, shh. That's what it looks like to me. So, hey, we got more news from the TSA. And this time, INFOWARS Nightly News reporter Dan Badandi is going to break down the TSA's violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. Here's Dan Badandi.
Thank you, Darren. Dan Badandi reporting for the Nightly News. And TSA continues to break the law by ignoring court demands on the naked body scanners, violating the Administrative Procedure Act. Back in July of 2011, the D.C. Court of Appeals ruled that the TSA had violated federal law by rolling out radiation-firing body scanners in airports without soliciting public comment. The court noted that it would allow the use of these scanners to continue, but the TSA should act promptly to initiate the legally required notice and comment rulemaking procedure. And Judge Douglas Ginsburg found that there was no justification for having failed to conduct a notice comment rulemaking, and said, few and irregular procedures imposed directly and significantly upon so many members of the public. And EPIC, known as the Electronic Privacy Information Center, has previously argued in court that the body scanners are invasive, unlawful, and ineffective, and that the TSA deployment of the devices violated the U.S. Constitution and several other federal statutes. The rights group is pursuing a case to completely suspend the use of these airport scanners. And on the note of the airport scanners, the federal government's already spent close to $1 billion on 800 of these machines nationwide. And they have plans for 1,000 more of these machines within the next 2 years. And in relation to this whole Batman shooting, could we now see TSA at your local movie theaters? And we're going to move on to quotes of the day. And this one is, I think it's a very disturbing quote and a smack in the face to anybody who served our country. And this is from the king of the New World Order, Henry Kissinger. He quotes, "Military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy." Now, again, that is a smack in the face to anybody who served our country. And that's from Henry Kissinger. And we got one more quote from Mr. Kissinger. "It is not a matter of what is true that counts, but a matter of what is perceived to be true." In other words, what's right is wrong, wrong is right. You know, truth is the enemy of the state. And that's the propaganda that these people try to push. And folks, this is Dan Badani for the Nightly News.